Welcome to the traveling hockey guy show. I'm still on a porch in Idaho. Somebody mentioned there was a comment about enjoy the lake. Oh, we're nowhere near the lake now. We're 2 hours away. 2015 to 2006. So I was looking at drafts and I thought, with all these other draft videos I've been doing, which I intentionally waited until a month after the draft to do, because I knew everybody else draft, and I didn't want to have draft fatigue take over. But there's some interesting things to look at. So, draft from 2016, 2017, still too recent to really grade anything or discuss who potentially won the draft or who found the big steal. But 2015 and earlier, I think we can start seeing a pattern. So let's do that. 2015, the top scorer is Connor McDavid, 209 games played, 256 points. Jack Eichel comes in second. He was the number 2 draft pick that year. 209 games played, 177 points. You look at that point differential, and this is why when Sabres fans, I don't know, I know it's not all, but there seems to be an importance placed on Eichel being seen as a superstar in the same vein as McDavid. Eichel is a superstar. Don't compare him to McDavid. It's going to frustrate you. Mitch Marner, 159 games played, 130 points. He was number 4 draft pick that year. Mikko Rantanen, 165 games played, 122 points. He was the number 10 draft pick. Number 35 overall. So this is the only non-first rounder in this top 10. Sebastian Aho of the Carolina Hurricanes, 160 games played, 114 points. Matthew Barzal, who was the number 16 draft pick, 84 games played, 85 points. Zach Werenski, 8th overall, 155 games, 84 points. Noah Hannafin, 5th overall, 239 games played, 83 points. Travis Konechny, 24th overall draft pick, 151 games played, 75 points. And Provorov, number 7 draft pick, 164 games played, 71 points. Pretty solid top 10 right there, if you ask me. Now we go back to 2014, and you start seeing more Oilers. Leon Draisaitl leads the way. He was the number 3 overall draft pick, 269 games played, 207 points. David Pastrnak is next. He was 25th overall, 254 games played, 203 points. Nick Ehlers, 236 games, 162 points from 9th overall. And that's why Sam Reinhart's sometimes viewed as a flop. But he really isn't. I really don't see it. 249 games played, 140 points. And he's only played 7 more games than Dylan Larkin and had the same amount of points. Larkin was the number 15 draft pick. Larkin is viewed as a key part of Detroit going forward. And like I said, Reinhart, there are some that are viewing him as a flop, but he had a very solid second half of the 2017-18 season. Victor Arvidsson is the biggest reach so far. At 112th overall, he's got 220 games played, 138 points. Arvidsson is a beast for the Nashville Predators. Preds fans know this. The rest of the NHL knew this after last year's playoffs. I kind of saw it in him in the 2016 playoffs. I thought he played very, very well. Nylander's next on the list. He's the number 8 overall draft pick that year, 185 games played, 135 points. Ekblad, who was the number 1 draft pick that year, 309 games played, 134 points. Of course, Ekblad suffering through some injuries along the way there, which hurt his production. But he's a defenseman, so you don't expect him to lead this anyways. Point. So Tampa gets on the list here with a draft pick from the 79th position, 150 games played, 106 points. And Braden Point is one of those untouchables in Tampa. And Sam Bennett, 4th overall, 241 games played, 89 points. The 2013 draft. Nathan McKinnon leads the way, 374 games played, 303 points. Sean Monahan is next. He's played 393 games and he has 281 points. Next up, Sasha Barkov, 331 games played, 249 points. And those are all top draft picks. 1, 6, 2, and now at 5 is Elias Lindholm, 374 games played, 188 points. Seth Jones, number 4 draft pick, 393 games played, 182 points. Again, as a defenseman, you can forgive not having as many points from him. Bo Horvat, 295 games played, 161 points as the number 9 draft pick. Number 14 is Wenberg, 14th draft pick, 283 games played, 154 points. Risto Ristolainen, 346 games played, 151 points. Jonathan Drouin, 241 games played, 141 points. And there's Max Domi, 12th overall draft pick, 222 games played, 135 points. So The interesting thing with 2013 is none of the top 10 scorers from that draft class were drafted any lower than 14th. Here you've got a couple out of the first round. Here you've got one out of the first round and a player in 24th. So this draft, very top heavy. 2012, the number one performing draft pick has been Philip Forsberg, who was drafted 11th by the Caps. Yeah, I know. I'm just pausing because, Caps and people are going to say things. 331 games played, 255 points. He has the same amount of points as Alex Galchenyuk, who had 418 games played, 255 points. He was the number 3 draft pick that year. Number 5 draft pick and 3rd overall on this list is Morgan Rielly, 388 games played, 171 points. Thomas Hertl, he's the number 17 draft pick. He had 328 games played, 170 points. Teuvo Teravainen, now of Carolina, then of Chicago when they drafted him. 18th overall, 278 games played, 150 points. Ghost of the Philadelphia Flyers, drafted 78th overall that year, 220 games played, 150 points. Hampus Lindholm and Tanner Pearson are tied. I think Pearson should be higher. He's got more goals. But I was writing this down off Hockey Reference. So I'll go with Pearson. I'll mention him first. 30th overall draft pick, 308 games played, 143 points. Hampus Lindholm, 371 games played, 143 points. Nail Yakupov shows up at 9th. I'm guessing he doesn't get any NHL points this year, so he may drop off this list if I do this again next year. He was number 1 draft pick, of course, 350 games played, 136 points. Jacob Trouba rounds out the list with 326 games played, 129 points, and I have nothing to offer you on Jacob Trouba as of yet, because there's Jets fans wondering what's going on with Trouba. Your guess is as good as mine. 2011, Gabriel Landeskog leads the way. He's number 2 overall draft pick, 506 games, 341 points. Nikita Kucherov, though, could very well pass him this year. 365 games played, 334 points, and he was a 58th overall draft pick. So Tampa shows up on this board twice already with off-the-board picks. And both times they were just brilliant picks that are now part of this very expensive core Tampa has going forward. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, number 1 overall pick, 457 games, 313 points. Johnny Gaudreau, 104th overall, 312 games played, 288 points. He dropped in that draft because of his size. Because remember when Calgary drafted him, the idea was he's got all kinds of offensive potential, sure, but can he deal with it at the NHL level? He's dealt pretty well. Mark Scheifele, the number 7 overall pick that year, 366 games played, 287 points. Jonathan Huberdeau, or Hooby Dooby Doo, as Florida announcers say it when he scores a goal. Stop it. Number 3 overall, 385 games played, 267 points. And Sean Couturier, 8th overall that year, 498 games played, 267 points. And Brandon Saad, who was 43rd overall, so that's outside the first round as well, 450 games played, 267 points. And Andre Palat, again, Tampa, look at this, 208th overall, 363 games played, 253 points. Do you think when Stevie Y went to Tampa that he took the draft luck of the Detroit Red Wings with him? I think he did. Mika Zibanejad was the number 6 overall pick, 409 games played, 235 points for him. And that rounds out the 2011 draft. So you've got 2 outside the top 100 and 3 altogether outside of the first, or outside of the top 50, 4 outside the first round. 2010. This is, of course, the Tyler or Taylor. That was the big question. Tyler is number 1 right now. He has 590 games played, 505 points. He was the number 2 draft pick by the Bruins that year. Taylor Hall, of course, number 1 overall draft pick, 529 games played, 474 points. And isn't it interesting that these guys get drafted by Edmonton and Boston, and they both get traded by the same GM in deals that fans seem to feel were losses for those teams? That's strange. So the next logical point for him would be to find anybody else on this list that hasn't been traded and be GM for those teams. Anyways, number 7 overall draft pick, number 3 on this list is Jeff Skinner, 579 games played, 379 points. Vlad Tarasenko, 16th overall, 421 games played, 350 points. Ryan Johansson, 4th overall pick, 512 games played, 342 points. Jaden Schwartz, 14th overall draft pick, 380 games played, 271 points. Michael Granlund, 9th overall draft pick, 398 games played, 268 points. Evgeny Kuznetsov, who was the 26th overall draft pick, 340 games played, 265 points. Cam Fowler, who was the 12th overall pick, 561 games played, 249 points. And Stone of the Ottawa Senators. As of now, he's still an Ottawa Senator. 178th overall pick. So Ottawa goes way off the board here and wins. 307 games played, 249 points. 2009 draft, number 1 overall is John Tavares, 669 games played, 621 points. I want to also state that while many people are taking issue with me having Tavares in the top 15 number 1 overall picks ahead of Stamkos, I did have reasons for doing that. I did look that over. I did consider it. If I'd gone top 20, definitely to me, Stamkos probably would have been 16. But I had reasons for taking Tavares over Stamkos. Number 2 on this list is Matt Duchene, who's 3rd overall draft pick, 654 games played, 477 points. Ryan O'Reilly, 33rd overall draft pick, so we were already outside the first round with this one. 651 games played, 422 points. Victor Hedman, number 2 overall draft pick, 626 games played, 364 points. Evander Kane, number 4 draft pick, 574 points, or 574 games, 354 points. Braden Shen, who was the number 5 draft pick, kind of a forgotten guy until he got to St. Louis. Not forgotten in that as a player, but he was such a high draft pick. He was so highly regarded before he hit the NHL. 515 games, 318 points. Nazem Kadri, of course, a shutdown specialist for Toronto now. Number 7 draft pick, 488 games played, 313 points. Johansson, who is now with New Jersey, 24th overall, 530 games played, 304 points for the Capitals. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who was 6th overall draft pick, 576 games, 290 points. Craig Smith, 98th overall draft pick, 516 games played, 261 points. I include the games as well as the points because I feel that showing the games played shows you just who's been dominant and who hasn't. And Smith, pretty solid career for him so far. Considering there are a lot of fans that might think he's a little overpaid at this stage of the game. But let's move on. 2008, Steven Stamkos, 664 games played, 668 points. I understand he's got a higher points per game than Tavares, but anyways. Erik Karlsson, number 15th overall pick that year. Number 15 overall pick that year. 627 games, 518 points. Eberle, 22nd overall by the Oilers that year. These guys here. 22nd overall, he was a steal, and then he got stolen from them by that same GM that traded these guys. 588 games played, 441 points. Drew Doughty, number 2 overall draft pick, 770 games played, 422 points. Can you believe Doughty's played almost 800 games already? Because I can't. That's insanity. That's what happens when a guy comes right in, right out of the draft. Derek Stepan, 51st overall draft pick, 597 games played, 416 points. I was honestly surprised to see Stepan this high on the list. Bailey, 9th overall draft pick by the New York Islanders. Bailey's coming off of a fantastic season. We'll see whether or not he's able to follow it up without Tavares. 715 games played, 377 points, and I don't say that meaning that Tavares gave him all the points, but with Tavares gone, there's fewer players now for teams to key in on. Alex Pietrangelo of the St. Louis Blues, number 4 draft pick, 617 games played, 357 points. John Carlson of the Capitals was a 27th overall pick, 608 games played, 333 points. Adam Henrique, 82nd overall draft pick that year. I'd say New Jersey did pretty well for themselves. 512 games played, 293 points. Roman Josi, 38th overall draft pick by the Nashville Predators, 481 games played, 292 points. In 2007, so you'll notice something odd here. First pick, first pick, first pick, first pick, first pick, first, and then 2006, we'll talk about that later. 2007, you got Kane, 822 games played, 828 points. Ben, 667 games played, 596 points. Jakub Voracek, 7th overall draft pick, 768 games played, 573 points. Notice Ben here, 129th overall. That's pretty good, isn't it? It's a pretty good pick. Max Pacioretty, 22nd overall, 626 games played, 448 points for the Habs. David Perron, 26th overall. I was so mad as a Canuck fan that they drafted Patrick White, and they left Perron on the table. 722 games played, 444 points. Wayne Simmons, who was drafted by LA, 61st overall, so outside the first round there. 762 games played, 444 points. Logan Couture, 9th overall draft pick, 582 games played, 437 points. Sam Gagner, a 6th overall draft pick, 770 games played, 433 points. And James Van Riemsdyk, who just returned to these guys, the Philadelphia Flyers, 609 games played, 393 points from the number 2 overall draft pick. And of course, PK Subban, 43rd overall, 582 games played, 377 points. All right. And then I wanted to talk about first overalls, and I realized that 2006 isn't even in the top 10. And that's Eric Johnson, who was drafted by St. Louis. He has 262 points in 637 games to this stage. And honestly, when you're talking about busts, and I hear that everyone like, oh, this guy's going to be a bust, top draft pick. Yakupov, absolutely. Johnson, I wouldn't qualify as a bust, although he's never really realized that potential that he had as a kid. But he's not in this top 10, and I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him since all of the other number 1 draft picks are on the board. Number 4 overall that year was Nick Backstrom. He is the best from that draft class. If St. Louis had drafted him, who knows where we're at right now. 815 games played, 799 points. Phil Kessel of the Boston Bruins, 5th overall, 914 games played, 741 points. And when you're talking about a guy and you're going, wow, he's played that many already, Phil Kessel at 914. That's higher than almost anybody, or higher than anybody else here. I don't know if it's higher than everybody in his draft class, but it's higher than everybody else on the board here. Claude Giroux, 22nd overall, 738 games played, 677 points. Jonathan Toews, 3rd overall draft pick, 791 games played, 674 points. Jordan Staal was drafted 2nd overall. I remember at the time a lot of people thought that was an iffy draft pick. And yet, he's had a solid career. And Pittsburgh definitely was okay with it in hindsight. Those Stanley Cups certainly help. 843 games, 482 points. Milan Lucic, 50th overall draft pick, so that's outside the first round. 811 games played, 481 points. Brian Little of the Winnipeg Jets, 12th overall that year. 754 games played, 475 points. And I realize if Winnipeg's on the board here that it's actually Atlanta at some point, but it's the same organization, so I stuck with the Winnipeg ones. Boston, Marchand was drafted 71st overall. 602 games played, 459 points. Kyle Okposo, who was drafted 7th overall that year, 670 games played, 458 points. And Derek Brassard, who was drafted 6th overall that year, 716 points, 428 games. So there you go. So when you're talking about draft picks, you will have guys who are drafted outside the first round who end up being decent scorers. But for the most part, your higher draft picks are usually your elite or best players out of any draft class. All right, that's the madness for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the madness and for watching and supporting the channel. It's greatly appreciated, and we'll be home in a couple of days. So, and when we get home, I do intend on, weather permitting, being able to do some more recording outside because it is kind of fun. It is a more relaxed sort of thing. So, thank you guys for all your support. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and thank you so much for watching. You guys make this easy to do. I'll talk to you again soon.